In the shadowed heart of Monfort Hall, a cryptic letter arrives, summoning Hercule Poirot to a grand Dorset manor where whispers echo from a secret rumor, hidden chamber locked for generations, now stirring with ominous footsteps in the dead of night. As Poirot and Captain Hastings join a glittering cast of suspects, each hiding their own secrets, a web of blackmail unravels, with coded letters and a deadly vial of cyanide pointing to a scandal that could ruin the Monfort family. But when a murder strikes, the stakes soar, and Poirot's little grey cells race to decode a chilling truth. A child's existence, buried in shame, threatens to tear the manor apart. In a midnight trap, the killer is unmasked, but the final revelation, a secret so dark it could shatter Monfort Hall, forever waits in the shadows, daring Poirot to uncover it before another life is lost. Major Whitby, perhaps emboldened by the claret, leaned toward Poirot. "Heard you're a detective, Monsieur Poirot. Ever catch a real villain? Not one of those petty thieves, mind you, but a proper scoundrel." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Major, a villain is not defined by the size of his crime, but by the darkness of his heart. And yes, I have met many such scoundrels." The table fell silent for a moment, and Poirot felt Lady Evelyn's gaze upon him. After dinner, as the guests retired to the drawing room for coffee, she drew him aside, leading him to a quiet alcove near the library. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "Monsieur Poirot, I must speak plainly. There is a room in this house, secret room known only to the family. It has been locked for years, a relic of my husband's ancestors. But recently I have heard noises from within, footsteps, murmurs, the sound of something heavy being moved. I fear someone is using it, but for what purpose, I cannot say." Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest. "A secret room, madame, c'est très intéressant. Can you show me this place?" Lady Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. "Tomorrow morning, after breakfast. I trust your discretion, Monsieur Poirot. The family must not know I've spoken of this." "Rest assured," Madame Poirot said, his voice smooth as silk. "Hercule Poirot is the soul of discretion." As they rejoined the others, Hastings caught Poirot's eye, sensing the shift in his friend's demeanor. "What was that about?" he whispered. Poirot's reply was a mere murmur. "The game, Hastings. It has begun." The night passed uneventfully, though Poirot slept lightly, his mind alive with questions. Who was using the secret room, and why? Was it a matter of theft, as Hastings had suggested, or something more sinister? The little grey cells, as Poirot called them, were already at work, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle yet to be fully revealed the next morning, after a breakfast of kedgeree and toast. Lady Evelyn led Poirot and Hastings to the library, a high-ceilinged room lined with leather-bound volumes. The air was heavy with the scent of old paper and wax polish. She approached a bookcase, her fingers tracing the spine of a worn copy of Gulliver's Travels. With a soft click, the bookcase swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. "Mon Dieu," Poirot breathed, his torch cutting through the gloom. The stairs were steep, the air damp and cool. At the bottom was a small, windowless room, its stone walls slick with moisture. A single table stood in the center, its surface scarred and dusty. Beside it was a wooden chair, its paint chipped, and in the corner a heavy oak chest, its lock gleaming faintly in the torchlight. Poirot knelt beside the chest, his gloved fingers tracing fresh scratches around the keyhole. "Someone has been here, madame," he said, "and recently the lock, it has been tampered with." Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. But who? Only Reginald, Charles, Beatrice, and Lionel know of this room. It's been a family secret. For generations, Poirot rose, his expression inscrutable. Then, Madame, we must ask ourselves, what does this person seek, and why do they act in secret? Fear not, Hercule Poirot will find the answers. As they ascended the stairs, Hastings whispered, "Well, Poirot, what do you make of it?" "A bit spooky, if you ask me." "Spooky, perhaps," Poirot replied, "but also revealing. The secret room, it is the key to this mystery, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall unlock it." The rest of the day passed in a blur of introductions and observations. Poirot mingled with the guests, his polite inquiries masking a relentless scrutiny. Charles, lounging in the billiard room, spoke of his travels abroad, though his eyes darted nervously when Poirot mentioned the library. Beatrice, sketching in the conservatory, dismissed the idea of family secrets with a laugh, but her pencil snapped under the pressure of her grip. Dr. Vance, encountered in the garden, spoke vaguely of his medical practice, his fingers toying with a silver cigarette case. Sir Reginald, overseeing the estate's accounts in his study, was brusque, insisting the house held no mysteries beyond his wife's imagination. Yet it was Clara Henshaw who intrigued Poirot most. The actress, radiant in an emerald gown, seemed to float through the house, her laughter a calculated performance. When Poirot engaged her in conversation, her answers were polished but evasive, her eyes never quite meeting his. "Monfort Hall is divine," she said, sipping a cocktail. "But old houses like this always have their secrets, don't they?" "Indeed," Mademoiselle Poirot replied. "And secrets, they have a way of coming to light." As the sun set, casting long shadows across the lawn, Poirot retired to his room, his mind a whirlwind of impressions. The secret room, the scratched lock, Lady Evelyn's fear. Clara's guarded charmage was a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. He stood at the window, gazing at the darkened silhouette of Monfort Hall, its secrets hidden behind stone and ivy. "Hastings," he said, turning to his friend, who was unpacking a suitcase. "This house, it is like a stage, and we are all players. But someone here is playing a dangerous game, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall discover. Who it is?" Hastings, ever optimistic, grinned. "You'll have it sorted by Sunday, I wager. Just don't go looking for ghosts in that secret room." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Ghosts, Hastings, no, but villains. They are very real, and they are here among us." The stage was set, the players assembled, and the mystery of Monfort Hall had begun to unfold. Poirot, with his little grey cells and unerring instinct, was ready to peel back the layers of deception, one by one, until the truth lay bare. Major Whitby, perhaps emboldened by the claret, leaned toward Poirot. "Heard you're a detective, Monsieur Poirot. Ever catch a real villain? Not one of those petty thieves, mind you, but a proper scoundrel." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Major, a villain is not defined by the size of his crime, but by the darkness of his heart. And yes, I have met many such scoundrels." The table fell silent for a moment, and Poirot felt Lady Evelyn's gaze upon him. After dinner, as the guests retired to the drawing-room for coffee, she drew him aside, leading him to a quiet alcove near the library. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. "Monsieur Poirot, I must speak plainly. There is a room in this house, secret room known only to the family. It has been locked for years, a relic of my husband's ancestors. But recently I have heard noises from within, footsteps, murmurs, the sound of something heavy being moved. I fear someone is using it, but for what purpose, I cannot say. Poirot's eyes gleamed with interest. A secret room, madame, c'est très intéressant. Can you show me this place? Lady Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Tomorrow morning, after breakfast. I trust your discretion, Monsieur Poirot. The family must not know I've spoken of this. Rest assured, Madame Poirot said, his voice smooth as silk. Hercule Poirot is the soul of discretion. As they rejoined the others, Hastings caught Poirot's eye, sensing the shift in his friend's demeanor. What was that about? He whispered. Poirot's reply was a mere murmur. The game, Hastings. It has begun. The night passed uneventfully, though Poirot slept lightly, his mind alive with questions. Who was using the secret room, and why? Was it a matter of theft, as Hastings had suggested, or something more sinister? The little grey cells, as Poirot called them, were already at work, piecing together the fragments of a puzzle yet to be. Fully revealed the next morning, after a breakfast of kedgeree and toast. Lady Evelyn led Poirot and Hastings to the library, a high-ceilinged room lined with leather-bound volumes. The air was heavy with the scent of old paper and wax polish. She approached a bookcase, her fingers tracing the spine of a worn copy of Gulliver's Travels. With a soft click, the bookcase swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase descending. Into darkness. Mon Dieu, Poirot breathed, his torch cutting through the gloom. The stairs were steep, the air damp and cool. At the bottom was a small, windowless room, its stone walls slick with moisture. A single table stood in the center, its surface scarred and dusty. Beside it was a wooden chair, its paint chipped, and in the corner a heavy oak chest, its lock gleaming faintly in the torchlight. Poirot knelt beside the chest, his gloved fingers tracing fresh scratches around the keyhole. Someone has been here, madame, he said, and recently the lock, it has been tampered with. Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. But who? Only Reginald, Charles, Beatrice, and Lionel know of this room. It's been a family secret. For generations. Poirot rose, his expression inscrutable. Then, madame, we must ask ourselves, what does this person seek, and why do they act in secret? Fear not, Hercule Poirot will find the answers. As they ascended the stairs, Hastings whispered, "Well, Poirot, what do you make of it?" "A bit spooky, if you ask me." "Spooky, perhaps," Poirot replied, "but also revealing. The secret room, it is the key to this mystery, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall unlock it." The rest of the day passed in a blur of introductions and observations. Poirot mingled with the guests, his polite inquiries masking a relentless scrutiny. Charles, lounging in the billiard room, spoke of his travels abroad, though his eyes darted nervously when Poirot mentioned the library. Beatrice, sketching in the conservatory, dismissed the idea of family secrets with a laugh, but her pencil snapped under the pressure of her grip. Dr. Vance, encountered in the garden, spoke vaguely of his medical practice, his fingers toying with a silver cigarette case. Sir Reginald, overseeing the estate's accounts in his study, was brusque, insisting the house held no mysteries beyond his wife's imagination. Yet it was Clara Henshaw who intrigued Poirot most. The actress, radiant in an emerald gown, seemed to float through the house, her laughter a calculated performance. When Poirot engaged her in conversation, her answers were polished but evasive, her eyes never quite meeting his. "Monfort Hall is divine," she said, sipping a cocktail. "But old houses like this always have their secrets, don't they?" "Indeed," Mademoiselle Poirot replied. "And secrets, they have a way of coming to light." As the sun set, casting long shadows across the lawn, Poirot retired to his room, his mind a whirlwind of impressions. The secret room, the scratched lock, Lady Evelyn's fear. Clara's guarded charmage was a piece of the puzzle, but the picture remained incomplete. He stood at the window, gazing at the darkened silhouette of Monfort Hall, its secrets hidden behind stone and ivy. "Hastings," he said, turning to his friend, who was unpacking a suitcase. "This house, it is like a stage, and we are all players. But someone here is playing a dangerous game, and I, Hercule Poirot, shall discover who it is." Hastings, ever optimistic, grinned. "You'll have it sorted by Sunday, I wager. Just don't go looking for ghosts in that secret room." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Ghosts, Hastings, no, but villains. They are very real, and they are here among us." The stage was set, the players assembled, and the mystery of Monfort Hall had begun to unfold. Poirot, with his little grey cells and unerring instinct, was ready to peel back the layers of deception, one by one, until the truth lay bare. Chapter 2. The Gathering of Suspects. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Monfort Hall, casting a golden glow over the breakfast room where the guests had assembled. The air was fragrant with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee, crisp bacon, and warm scones, yet an undercurrent of unease rippled beneath the clink of china and the murmur of polite conversation. Hercule Poirot, seated at the far end of the table, sipped his tisane with deliberate care, his sharp green eyes observing the tableau before him. Captain Hastings, ever the genial companion, helped himself to a second serving of kedgeree, oblivious to the subtle tensions that Poirot's keen mind was already dissecting. The party at Monfort Hall was a study in contrasts, each member a distinct note in a discordant symphony. Lady Evelyn Monfort presided over the table with the grace of a seasoned hostess, her auburn hair catching the light as she directed the servants with a nod. Yet her smile was strained, her fingers twisting the edge of a linen napkin when she thought no one was watching. Sir Reginald Monfort, her husband, sat at the head of the table, his broad shoulders squared as he read the Financial Times, his florid face betraying no hint of the secret room's mystery. His recent knighthood, earned through his steel empire, had done little to soften his brusque demeanor, and he responded to the morning's pleasantries with gruff monosyllables. Their son, Charles Monfort, lounged opposite Poirot, his handsome features softened by a night of revelry. His dark hair was slightly dishevelled, and his tie was loosened, suggesting a man more at ease in a nightclub than a country manor. He flashed a charming smile at Clara Henshaw, the actress, who sat beside him, her laughter a silvery cascade that seemed to enchant the room. Clara, in a dress of sapphire silk that clung to her like a second skin, was the epitome of glamour, her every gesture calculated to draw the eye. Yet Poirot noted the flicker of calculation in her gaze, as if she were playing a role even now. Beatrice Monfort, the Monfort's daughter, sat near her mother, her sharp features and quick eyes a mirror of Lady Evelyn's, though tempered by a restless energy. She toyed with a silver spoon, her auburn hair pinned tightly, as if to restrain her thoughts. Her conversation was sparse, her attention drifting to the window, where the autumn leaves swirled in a brisk wind. Dr. Lionel Vance, Lady Evelyn's younger brother, was a quieter presence, his lean frame and pale complexion suggesting a life spent in the shadow of books and laboratories. As a physician, his movements were precise, his words measured, but Poirot sensed a guarded quality, as if he were holding something back. Major Ernest Whitby, a retired military man with a bristling mustache and a penchant for reminiscing about his campaigns in India, sat to Poirot's right, regaling Hastings with tales of tiger hunts. His hearty laugh filled the room, but his eyes, sharp and assessing, missed little. Mrs. Florence Teague, Lady Evelyn's widowed cousin, completed the party, her pinched face and darting gaze marking her as a woman who thrived on gossip. Her black morning dress, though elegant, seemed to absorb the light, and her voice carried a waspish edge as she commented on the weather, the food, and the peculiarities of Dorset society. Poirot, ever the observer, noted the interplay of personalities with the precision of a watchmaker. Charles's flirtation with Clara was blatant, his hand brushing hers as he passed the marmalade. Yet Clara's response was measured, her smile a touch practiced. Beatrice's silence was punctuated by sharp glances at her brother, as if she disapproved of his behavior. Dr. Vance, meanwhile, seemed detached, his fork moving mechanically as he listened to Major Whitby's anecdotes. Sir Reginald, engrossed in his newspaper, appeared oblivious to the undercurrents, but Poirot suspected the man missed nothing. Lady Evelyn's eyes met Poirot's briefly, and in that fleeting moment, he saw a plea for reassurance. As breakfast concluded, the guests dispersed, some to the drawing-room, others to the gardens or the library. Poirot, however, lingered, his mind turning over the morning's observations. "Hastings," he said, as they strolled toward the terrace, "this household, it is like a puzzle with pieces that do not yet fit. Each person, they play a part, but what is the role they conceal?" Hastings, lighting a cigarette, shrugged. "Seems a lively bunch, Poirot. Charles is a bit of a cad, but harmless, I'd wager. Clara's a stunner, though bet she's got half the men here in a tizzy." Poirot's lips twitched. "Mon ami, you see the surface, but not the depths. There is tension here, a thread of unease that binds them all. The secret room, it is the key, but to what lock?" Their conversation was interrupted by Lady Evelyn, who approached with a hesitant smile. "Monsieur Poirot, might I have a word?" "In private." "Bien sûr, Madame Poirot," replied, bowing slightly. He gestured for Hastings to remain on the terrace and followed Lady Evelyn to a small morning room, its walls adorned with delicate watercolors of the Dorset coast. She closed the door, her hands trembling slightly. "Monsieur Poirot," she began, her voice low, "I must confide in you further. The noises in the secret room, they have grown more frequent. Last night I heard them again, a scraping sound, like something being dragged. I am certain someone is using the room, but I cannot imagine why. Reginald dismisses it as mice, but I know better." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "And you have told no one else of these noises?" "No one," she said firmly. "Not even Reginald. He thinks me fanciful, but I am not imagining this. The room, it frightens me." "Fear not, madame," Poirot said, his tone soothing yet resolute. "Hercule Poirot will uncover the truth. But tell me, who in this house might have reason to use such a hidden place? A servant, perhaps, or one of the guests?" Lady Evelyn shook her head. "The servants are loyal. Most have been with us for years. As for the guests, I cannot say. Clara is new to our circle, invited at Charles's insistence. Major Whitby is an old friend of Reginald's, and Florence, well, she's family, though we've never been close. Lionel, my brother, knows of the room, but he's so absorbed in his work, I cannot imagine him involved. Poirot nodded, filing away each detail. And your children, Madame, Charles and Beatrice. Her face clouded. Charles is reckless, but I cannot believe he would do anything sinister. Beatrice is restless, unhappy about Reginald's plans to sell part of the estate, but she is no sneak. Still, I trust you to be discreet, Monsieur Poirot. If the family knew I had spoken of the room, it would cause complications. Discretion, Madame, is my watchword, Poirot assured her. Now, if you will permit, I should like to speak with each member of the household. The truth, it hides in the smallest details. Lady Evelyn agreed, and Poirot returned to the terrace, where Hastings was enjoying the crisp autumn air. Well, Hastings asked, what's the verdict? The verdict, my friend, is that we have work to do, Poirot replied. Come. Let us begin with young Charles. His charm, it is a mask, and I wish to see what lies beneath. They found Charles in the billiard room, idly knocking balls across the green baize. His easy smile faltered as Poirot approached, his eyes narrowing slightly. Monsieur Poirot, to what do I owe the pleasure? Not here to lecture me on billiards, I hope. Poirot's smile was bland. Nan, monsieur, I merely wish to know you better. You are fond of Monfort Hall, n'est-ce pas? Charles shrugged, leaning on his cue. It's home, I suppose. Bit grand for my taste, but father loves it. Says it's his legacy. And you, do you share his attachment to this legacy? Poirot asked, his tone deceptively casual. Charles hesitated, his fingers tightening on the cue. Suppose so, though I'd rather be in London, truth be told. More life there, you know. Poirot nodded, noting the young man's unease. And the history of this house, its secrets, do they interest you? Charles's laugh was a touch too loud. Secrets? You've been talking to mother, haven't you? She's always on about some old family tale. Far as I'm concerned, this place is just stone and mortar. Poirot let the matter drop, but his mind was alert. Charles's nonchalance was too practiced, his denial too swift. Next, they sought out Beatrice, who was in the conservatory, sketching a cluster of orchids with fierce concentration. Her pencil paused as Poirot approached, her eyes wary. Monsieur Poirot, she said, her voice cool. I hope you're enjoying your stay. Most assuredly, Mademoiselle Poirot replied. Your home, it is magnificent. Tell me, do you spend much time in the library? It is a fine room, full of history. Beatrice's expression tightened. The library? I read there sometimes, but it's father's domain. Why do you ask? A passing curiosity, Poirot said smoothly. Old houses, they have their secrets, do they not? Her eyes flicked to his, then away. If they do, I don't bother. With them, I've enough to worry about with father's plans to sell the South Fields. It's a betrayal of everything this place stands for. Her passion was genuine, but Poirot sensed she was holding something back. He thanked her and moved on, his mind cataloguing each response. Dr. Vance was next, found in the garden, pruning a rosebush with surgical precision. His answers were clipped, his manner distant. The library, I used it years ago for storing old journals. Haven't been there in ages. Sir Reginald, encountered in his study, was dismissive. Evelyn's got you chasing shadows, hasn't she? That room's been locked since my grandfather's day. Nothing but dust and cobwebs. However, was a different matter. Poirot found her in the drawing room, practicing lines from a script, her voice a melodic lilt. She greeted him with a dazzling smile, but her eyes were guarded. "Monsieur Poirot, you're quite the celebrity. Tell me, do you ever tire of solving mysteries?" "Never," Mademoiselle Poirot replied. "And you, do you find Monfort Hall inspiring?" She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "It's a stage, isn't it? Every room a scene, every guest an actor. But I'm just here to enjoy myself, not to dig up old secrets." Her words were light, but Poirot sensed a deeper current. As he and Hastings returned to their rooms to dress for dinner, he murmured, "She knows something, Hastings. They all do. The secret room, it binds them, and I shall discover how." Dinner that evening was a lavish affair, the table groaning under the weight of roasted venison, creamed potatoes, and a towering trifle. Yet the atmosphere was charged, the guests' laughter a touch too forced, their glances too quick. Poirot watched it all, his mind a whirl of connections. Charles's flirtation with Clara grew bolder, Beatrice's silence more pronounced. Dr. Vance excused himself early, citing a headache, while Mrs. Teague's gossip grew sharper, her eyes darting to Lady Evelyn. As the meal ended, Poirot caught a glimpse of something curious, a scrap of paper, half hidden beneath a candelabrum, bearing the words, "Midnight," the chest in a hurried scrawl. He pocketed it discreetly, his heart quickening. The secret room was no longer a mere curiosity. It was the heart of a mystery that threatened to unravel the fragile harmony of Monfort Hall. "Hastings," Poirot said as they retired for the night, "tomorrow we shall watch and listen. The players are in place, and the curtain is rising. The truth, it is close, and Hercule Poirot will not let it slip away." Chapter 3. The Hidden Door. The morning after the dinner at Monfort Hall dawned with a crisp clarity. The Dorset landscape bathed in a pale silvery light that seemed to sharpen the edges of the world. Hercule Poirot stood at his bedroom window, his small, neat figure silhouetted against the dawn, his hands clasped behind his back as he surveyed the manicured lawns and distant hills. The events of the previous evening, the cryptic note, the strained interactions, Lady Evelyn's whispered fears had set his little grey cells into a feverish dance. Captain Hastings, still abed, snored softly, unaware of the detective's restless mind. Poirot's breakfast was a solitary affair, taken early in the morning room with only a cup of steaming chocolate and a perfectly buttered croissant for company. The household was yet to stir, save for the silent-footed servants who glided through their duties with the precision of a well-rehearsed ballet. Poirot's thoughts, however, were far from the tranquility of the scene. The scrap of paper bearing the words "Midnight," the chest lay tucked in his pocketbook, its hurried scrawl a tantalizing clue. Who had written it, and what did they seek in the secret room? The answer, he knew, lay behind the hidden door at precisely 9 o'clock. Lady Evelyn appeared, her face pale but composed, her grey silk dress whispering as she moved. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low, "I trust you slept well. Are you ready to see the room?" "Mais oui," Madame Poirot replied, rising with a bow. "The sooner we examine this secret place, the sooner we may unravel its mystery." Hastings, roused at last, joined them, his hair slightly askew but his enthusiasm undimmed. "Jolly good to get to the bottom of this, Poirot," he said, rubbing his hands. "A secret room sounds like something out of a novel." Poirot's smile was indulgent. Life, my friend, is often more dramatic than fiction. Come, let us proceed. Lady Evelyn led them through the grand hall, past the stern gazes of Monfort ancestors, immortalized in oil, to the library. The room was a haven of quiet, its high shelves groaning under the weight of leather-bound tomes, its air heavy with the scent of old paper and beeswax. A fire crackled in the grate, casting flickering shadows across the Persian rug. Lady Evelyn paused before a bookcase near the far wall, her fingers hesitating over a worn copy of Gulliver's Travels. With a glance to ensure they were alone, she pressed the spine, and a soft click echoed in the stillness. The bookcase swung inward, revealing a narrow stone staircase descending into darkness. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. He produced a small electric torch from his pocket, its beam cutting through the gloom. "After you, madame." Lady Evelyn hesitated, her hand gripping the edge of the bookcase. "It's rather oppressive down there," she said. "I've only been once, years ago." "Fear not," Poirot said, his tone reassuring. "Hercule Poirot is no stranger to shadows." The staircase was steep and uneven, the air growing cooler and damper with each step. Hastings, following close behind, muttered about the chill, but Poirot's focus was unwavering. At the bottom, the torchlight revealed a small, windowless chamber, its stone walls slick with moisture. The floor was bare, save for a thin layer of dust disturbed by recent footprints. In the center stood a scarred wooden table, its surface etched with faint scratches, as if it had borne the weight of secrets for centuries. A single chair, its paint peeling, stood beside it, and in the corner loomed a heavy oak chest, its brass lock gleaming faintly in the torch's beam. Poirot knelt beside the chest, his gloved fingers tracing the lock's surface. Fresh scratches marred the brass, their edges sharp and untarnished. "C'est intéressant," he said, his voice a soft murmur. "This lock, it has been tampered with, and recently, someone has tried to open it, perhaps with a tool not suited to the task." Hastings peered over his shoulder. "Looks like someone was in a hurry. Any idea what's inside?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "That, my friend, is the question. Madame, have you ever opened this chest?" Lady Evelyn shook her head, her expression troubled. "Never. It's been locked as long as I've known of the room. Reginald says it contains old family papers. Nothing of value, but I've never seen the key." Poirot rose, dusting his knees with a handkerchief. "Then we must assume the key is either lost or in the possession of one who uses this room in secret. Tell me, madame, who else knows of this place?" "Only the family," she replied. "Reginald, Charles, Beatrice, and Lionel. It's been a Monfort secret for generations, passed down from father to son. I only learned of it after my marriage, and the guests," Poirot pressed. "Miss Henshaw, Major Whitby, Mrs. Teagood, they have discovered it." "I cannot imagine how," Lady Evelyn said, though her voice wavered. "The entrance is well hidden, and we've never spoken of it to outsiders." Poirot nodded, his mind cataloguing possibilities. A secret known only to the family, yet disturbed by an unknown hand. Was it greed that drove the intruder, or something darker? He turned his attention to the room itself, pacing its confines with measured steps. The walls were unadorned, save for faint cracks where the stones had settled over centuries. The table bore no clues beyond its scratches, and the chair was unremarkable, its wood warped by damp. Yet the footprints in the dust intrigued him too. Distinct sets, one larger, one smaller, suggesting at least 2 visitors. "Regard us, Hastings," Poirot said, pointing to the tracks. "These prints, they are fresh, no more than a day or 2 old. The larger, they could belong to a man, perhaps Sir Reginald or Charles. The smaller, a woman or a man with small feet. Dr. Vance, perhaps." Hastings squinted at the floor. "Could be anyone, really. Servants, maybe." "Nan," Poirot said firmly. "Lady Evelyn assures us the servants know nothing of this room. No, these prints belong to someone with a purpose, someone who risks much to come here." Lady Evelyn's face grew paler. "What could they want? There's nothing here but dust and shadows." "Shadows, madame, often conceal the truth," Poirot replied. "But fear not. Hercule Poirot will bring light to this darkness." They ascended the stairs, the bookcase closing behind them with a soft thud. Lady Evelyn excused herself, citing household duties, but Poirot sensed her relief at leaving the oppressive chamber. He and Hastings lingered in the library, the detective's mind worry like a finely tuned machine. "Well, Poirot," Hastings said, lighting a cigarette, "what's the next move? That chest looks like it's hiding something juicy." "Juicy, perhaps," Poirot said, "but dangerous, most certainly. We must learn more about this household, Hastings. Each member, they carry a piece of the puzzle. I shall begin with discreet inquiries. You, my friend, will keep your eyes open. Observe the guests, the family. Note their habits, their glances, their silences." Hastings grinned. "Spying, eh? I can manage that. But I still think it's just some old family feud." Poirot's smile was enigmatic. "Perhaps, but the little grey cells, they suggest. Otherwise, come, let us return to the house. The day is young, and there is much to discover." The morning passed in a flurry of activity. Poirot, with his unerring knack for blending charm with scrutiny, engaged each member of the household. In turn, Sir Reginald, found in his study poring over ledgers, was dismissive. "Evelyn's got you chasing ghosts, Poirot," he said, his voice booming. "That room's been locked since my father's time. Nothing but old junk down there." Charles, encountered on the lawn practicing his golf swing, was equally evasive, though his nonchalance faltered under Poirot's gaze. "The secret room, haven't thought about it in years. Used to sneak down there as a boy, but it's just a dusty hole. Why the interest?" Beatrice, sketching in the conservatory, was shut-tongued. "If mother's worried about that room, it's her imagination running wild. I'm more concerned about father selling off half the estate. That's the real scandal." Dr. Lionel Vance, pruning roses in the garden, was the most guarded. The room. I used it once to store medical journals, back when I was studying here. Haven't been down in ages. Too damp for my liking. Clara Henshaw, rehearsing lines in the drawing room, deflected Poirot's questions with a laugh. "Secrets, Monsieur Poirot. This house is full of them, but I'm just a guest. I don't go poking into dark corners." Major Whitby, polishing his boots in the smoking room, was more forthcoming. "Heard about that room years ago, when I was a guest here. Reginald mentioned it once, said it was used during the Civil War to hide valuables. Never seen it myself. But sounds like a lark." Mrs. Teague, sipping tea in the morning room, was predictably gossipy. "A secret room. Oh, I've heard whispers, but Evelyn's so tight-lipped. Probably some old Monfort scandal. You know how these families are." Each conversation added a thread to Poirot's tapestry, yet the pattern remained elusive. As luncheon approached, He and Hastings strolled the grounds, the detective's mind sifting through the morning's findings. The scratched lock, the footprints, the cryptic note all pointed to a clandestine purpose. But what? Blackmail, theft, or something more sinister? They were crossing the gravel drive when Poirot's sharp eyes caught a glint in the grass, a small, tarnished key half buried in the earth. He stooped to retrieve it, his gloved fingers brushing away the soil. Quest CEQ, Cest, he murmured, holding it to the light. The key was old, its bow intricately carved with the Monfort crest. Hastings, Poirot said, his voice tinged with excitement. This may be the key to the chest. But how did it come to be here, outside? The house, Hastings scratched his head. Dropped by accident, maybe. Whoever's sneaking into that room must have been careless. Careless, perhaps, Poirot said, or deliberate. This key, it is a clue, but also a warning. Someone wishes us to know they have been here. As they returned to the house, Poirot's mind was alight with possibilities. The hidden door had been opened, not just in the library, but in the mystery itself. The secret room was no longer a mere curiosity. It was a stage, and the players were moving into position. With his unerring instinct, knew that the truth lay within reach, waiting to be unlocked by the little grey cells of Hercule Poirot. Chapter 4. The first Clutha afternoon at Monfort Hall unfolded with the deceptive calm of an autumn day. The golden light filtering through the ancient oaks and casting dappled shadows across the manicured lawns. Hercule Poirot, his mind a whirl of deductions, stood on the terrace, his small, immaculate figure a stark contrast to the sprawling grandeur of the manor. The tarnished key, now safely tucked in his pocketbook beside the cryptic note reading midnight. The chest was a tangible link to the mystery of the secret room. Captain Hastings, ever eager for action, paced beside him, his earlier nonchalance giving way to a spark of curiosity. Poirot, Hastings said, puffing on a cigarette, that key you found, it's got to fit that chest, hasn't it? I say we go back down and try it. Could crack this whole thing wide open. Poirot's eyes twinkled, but his tone was measured. Patience, mon ami. The key, it is a clue, but it is not yet the solution. We must first understand the players in this drama. To rush is to risk missing the subtle threads that bind this mystery. The detective's plan was to probe the household. Further, to peel back the layers of politeness and uncover the motives hidden beneath. The morning's visit to the secret room had confirmed that someone was using it, and the scratched lock suggested a purpose both urgent and clandestine. The key, found so conveniently in the grass, was either a careless mistake or a deliberate taunt, and Poirot leaned toward the latter. Someone in Monfort Hall was playing a dangerous game, and he intended to outwit them. Their first opportunity came with Charles Monfort, whom they found in the billiard room, idly spinning a cue between his fingers. The young man's charm was undimmed, but Poirot noted a flicker of unease in his eyes as they approached. Monsieur Charles, Poirot began, his voice smooth as velvet, you are a man of the world, n'est-ce pas? You must know the secrets of this house better than most. Charles laughed, though it sounded forced. Secrets? You're barking up the wrong tree, Poirot. This place is dull as ditch water. Nothing but old portraits and creaky floors. And yet, Poirot said, his gaze steady, there is a room, hidden away, known to your family. Have you never been curious about its contents? Charles's hand faltered on the cue, and he leaned against the table, his casual air fraying at the edges. That old hole, Used to poke around there as a kid, but it's just a dusty cupboard. Nothing worth bothering about." His eyes darted to the window, as if seeking escape. Poirot nodded, his expression bland. "Been, sir. But tell me, have you been in the library lately? Perhaps, late at night?" The question hung in the air, and Charles's smile tightened. "Library, not my scene. I'm more for the card table than books." He turned back to the billiard table, striking a ball with unnecessary force. Poirot thanked him and withdrew, but the young man's nervousness was a thread to tug later. Next, they sought Beatrice Monfort, who was in the conservatory, her sketchbook abandoned as she stared out at the rose garden. Her sharp features were drawn, her fingers twisting a stray curl of auburn hair. "Mademoiselle Beatrice," Poirot said, bowing slightly, "you seem troubled. Is it the beauty of the roses, or something more personal?" Beatrice's eyes flashed with defiance. "I'm fine, Monsieur Poirot, just tired of this house and its endless dramas. Father's obsessed with selling the South Fields, and mother's fretting over nothing. It's exhausting." Poirot tilted his head. "And the library, mademoiselle? Do you ever visit it? Perhaps to explore its hidden corners?" Her gaze sharpened, but she answered coolly, "I read there sometimes, but I don't go poking into places I shouldn't. If you're fishing for something, you'd do better to ask Charles. He's always up to no good." Poirot noted the edge in her voice, the quick deflection to her brother. She was protective, perhaps, or hiding something of her own. He thanked her and moved on, his mind cataloguing her words and the tension in her posture. Dr. Lionel Vance was in the garden, examining a row of medicinal herbs with a clinical eye. His lean frame and pale complexion gave him an almost spectral quality in the afternoon light. Dr. Vance, Poirot said, approaching with a polite smile, "Your knowledge of plants, it is impressive. Do you ever use the library for your studies? Perhaps to store your research?" Vance's hands paused over a sprig of lavender, and he glanced up, his expression guarded. "I did, years ago, when I was a student here. Kept some journals in the library, but that was ages ago. Too busy with my practice now." "And the secret room?" Poirot asked, his tone deceptively casual. "Did you ever store anything there?" Vance's fingers tightened on the lavender, snapping the stem. "That room, it's a relic, nothing more. I haven't been down there in years. Too damp for papers." He turned back to the herbs, dismissing Poirot with a curt nod. Poirot's smile did not waver, but his mind was alert. Vance's reaction was too swift, too defensive. The man was hiding something, and Poirot resolved to watch him closely. Sir Reginald was in his study, surrounded by ledgers and cigar smoke. His brusque manner softened slightly at Poirot's approach, though his impatience was clear. "Look here, Poirot," he said, puffing on his cigar. "Evelyn's got you chasing fairy tales. That room's been locked since my grandfather's day. Nothing down there but cobwebs and bad air." "Perhaps," Poirot said, "but a lock, it can be opened, Nan. Have you never been curious about what lies within?" Sir Reginald snorted. "Curious? I've got a business to run, man. No time for poking around in dusty holes. If Evelyn's hearing things, it's mice, mark my words." Poirot thanked him and withdrew, but Sir Reginald's dismissal rang hollow. A man of his stature would not tolerate mysteries in his own home unless he had reason to ignore them. Clara Henshaw, found rehearsing in the drawing-room, was all charm and deflection. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice a melodic purr, "you're wasting your talents on this old pile. There's nothing here but bored aristocrats and dusty books." "And yet," Poirot said, "a house like this, it holds secrets. Have you never wandered into the library, perhaps by chance? Clara's laugh was bright, but her eyes were wary. Me, I'm allergic to dust. I stick to the brighter parts of the house, thank you. Poirot let her go, but her evasiveness was another piece of the puzzle. Major Whitby and Mrs. Teague, questioned later, offered little beyond anecdotes and gossip. Though Whitby mentioned seeing Charles near the library late one night, a detail Poirot filed away. As the afternoon waned, Poirot and Hastings returned to the library, the detective's torch illuminating the hidden staircase once more. The secret room was as they had left it, the dust undisturbed, save for the footprints they had noted earlier. Poirot examined the chest again, testing the tarnished key in the lock. It turned with a soft click, but the lid remained stubbornly shut, as if sealed by rust or design. Stuck fast, Hastings said, giving it a tug. Maybe it's empty anyway. Empty, perhaps. Poirot said, but significant. This chest, it is the heart of the mystery. Someone wants what lies within, and they are willing to risk much to get it. As they emerged from the library, Poirot's sharp eyes caught a flicker of movement, curtain twitching at the far end of the hall. Someone had been watching. He said nothing to Hastings, but his mind was alight. The key was a clue, but the note was the true catalyst. Midnight, the chest. Someone would return to the secret room, and Poirot intended to be ready. Dinner that evening was a tense affair, the guests' laughter brittle, their glances guarded. Poirot watched them all, Charles's forced joviality, Beatrice's brooding silence, Vance's detached precision, Clara's calculated charm. Lady Evelyn's eyes met his once, a silent plea for answers. Sir Reginald dominated the conversation, railing against government taxes, while Mrs. Teague's gossip grew sharper, her barbs aimed at Clara after dinner. As the guests retired to the drawing room, Poirot slipped away, the note burning in his pocket. He found a secluded alcove near the library and waited, his torch dimmed, his senses alert. At 11:30, he heard soft footsteps and a shadow pass the library door. It was too dark to identify the figure, but they moved with purpose. Pausing at the bookcase before slipping inside, Poirot signaled Hastings, who had joined him, and they crept forward, silent as ghosts. The bookcase was ajar, and the faint glow of a lantern flickered below. Poirot descended the stairs, his heart steady, his mind razor-sharp. At the bottom, he saw a figure kneeling by the chest, a lockpick glinting in their hand. It was Clara. Henshaw, her face pale in the lantern's light, her fingers trembling as she worked the lock. Mademoiselle, Poirot said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. Clara gasped, dropping the lockpick. Monsieur Poirot, I was just curious. Poirot finished, his tone mild but unyielding. Curiosity, it does not explain this, mademoiselle. What do you seek in this chest? Clara's eyes darted to the stairs, but Hastings blocked the way. She sagged, her composure crumbling. I overheard Charles talking about the room, she said, her voice low. He said there was something valuable here, something worth a fortune. I thought, if I could find it. Poirot's gaze was piercing. And who else knows of this, mademoiselle? Who sent you here? No one. She insisted, but her eyes betrayed her. She fled up the stairs, brushing past Hastings, who made no move to stop her. Let her go, Poirot said. She has told us enough, for now. Hastings frowned. Enough. She was picking the lock, Poirot. She's up to her neck in this. Perhaps, Poirot said, but she is not the mastermind. The note, the key, the footprints, They point to a larger scheme. Clara, she is a pawn, but whose? As they returned to their rooms, the house seemed to close around them, its shadows deeper, its silence heavier. The first clue had been found, but it was only the beginning. The secret room held its secret still, and Poirot knew that the truth, when it came, would be as sharp and unforgiving as the autumn wind, now rattling the windows of Monfort Hall. Chapter 5. The midnight vigil. The night had settled over Monfort Hall like a velvet cloak, its silence broken only by the occasional creak of ancient timbers and the distant hoot of an owl. Hercule Poirot, seated in a high-backed chair in his bedroom, was far from sleep. His small, precise hands rested on the arms of the chair, his green eyes fixed on the flickering flame of a single candle. The events of the Datha, tarnished key, the cryptic note, and Clara Henshaw's furtive attempt to pick the lock of the chest in the secret room had set his little grey cells into a frenetic whirl. Captain Hastings, sprawled on a settee by the fire, was less composed, his brow furrowed as he recounted the evening's encounter. "Dash it all," Poirot Hastings said, tossing a cigarette stub into the grate. "Clara's up to her neck in this, isn't she? Caught red-handed, and all that nonsense about Charles and a fortune. Why didn't we press her harder?" Poirot's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. "Mon ami, to press too hard is to break the delicate thread of truth, Mademoiselle Henshaw. She is frightened, yes, but she is not the master of this game. She seeks something in that chest, but she does not act alone. The note, midnight, the chest, it was not meant for her, I think. No, we must wait, we must watch, and the true player will reveal themselves." Hastings frowned, unconvinced. "Wait, she was picking the lock, Poirot. If we'd stayed on her, we might have got the whole story." "Patience, Hastings," Poirot replied, his tone gentle but firm. "The spider does not chase the fly. It weaves its web and waits. Tonight we shall set our own trap. The secret room, it calls to someone, and I, Hercule Poirot, will be there to greet them." The plan was simple, yet fraught with risk. Poirot proposed a vigil in the library, concealed behind the heavy damask curtains that flanked the bookcase hiding the secret room's entrance. The note's mention of midnight suggested another attempt on the chest, and Poirot was determined to catch the intruder in the act. Hastings, though skeptical of the detective's penchant for theatrics, agreed, his sense of adventure stirred by the prospect of action. As the clock in the hall chimed 11, Poirot and Hastings slipped into the library, moving with the stealth of seasoned conspirators. The room was bathed in moonlight, the tall windows casting silver patterns across the shelves. Poirot, his torch dimmed to a faint glow, positioned himself behind the curtains, his small frame blending seamlessly into the shadows. Hastings, less accustomed to such covert maneuvers, took up a post nearby, his breathing slightly uneven with anticipation. "Keep still, Hastings," Poirot whispered, his voice barely audible. "The slightest sound, it could betray us." Hastings nodded, though his restlessness was palpable. The library was silent, save for the soft tick of a grandfather clock in the corner, its pendulum a metronome to their waiting. The minutes stretched into an eternity, each second heavy with expectation. Poirot's senses were razor-sharp, attuned to the faintest creak or rustle. The note, the key, Clara's confession, they were pieces of a puzzle, but the picture remained elusive. Who else knew of the chest's contents? And why risk discovery in the dead of night? At precisely 10 minutes to midnight, a faint sound broke the stillness, the soft click of the library door. Poirot's hand tightened on his torch, and Hastings stiffened beside him. Footsteps, light but deliberate, crossed the rug, pausing at the bookcase. A shadow moved in the moonlight, and Poirot's heart quickened. The intruder was no amateur. Their movements were practiced, almost silent. The bookcase creaked as it swung open, and a figure slipped through the hidden door, a lantern's glow flickering briefly before the panel closed. Poirot waited a heartbeat, then motioned to Hastings. They crept to the bookcase, easing it open with care. The staircase descended into darkness, the air cool and damp. Poirot's torch cast a narrow beam, revealing the familiar stone walls of the secret room. At the bottom, the figure knelt by the chest, their back to the stairs. It was Clara Henshaw again, her sapphire dress replaced by a dark shawl, her fingers working a lockpick with desperate precision. The lantern beside her cast eerie shadows, and her breath came in short, anxious gasps. Poirot stepped forward, his voice soft but commanding. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, you are persistent, I see. But the chest, it resists you still." Clara spun around, her face pale in the lantern's light, her eyes wide with panic. The lockpick clattered to the floor, and she clutched the shawl tightly. "Monsieur Poirot, I didn't expect." "Clearly," Poirot said, his tone dry. "You returned to this room at midnight, as the note suggested. Tell me, mademoiselle, who gave you this task, for it is not your own design." Clara's lips trembled, and she glanced at the stairs, where Hastings stood, his expression stern. "I told you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I overheard Charles talking about the room, about something valuable. I thought, if I could find it, I could secure my future. The stage is fickle, Monsieur Poirot. I needed something to fall back on." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his gaze piercing. "And yet, you come armed with a lockpick, at the precise hour mentioned in a note you claim not to have seen. You are not so innocent, mademoiselle. Who is your confederate?" Clara shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "There's no one, I swear it. I found the note in the drawing room, slipped under a cushion. I thought it was Charles's, but I don't know. I had to try." Poirot studied her, his mind sifting truth from deception. Her fear was genuine, but her story was incomplete. The note, found so conveniently, suggested a setup, but by whom? He stepped closer, his voice softening. "Mademoiselle, you are in danger. The person who left that note, they use you as a pawn. Tell me all, and I may protect you." Clara hesitated, then crumpled, her shoulders sagging. "I don't know who it was," she said. The note was unsigned. It said to come at midnight, that the chest held something worth more than gold. I thought it was Charles, playing a game, but now, I'm not sure. Poirot nodded, his expression inscrutable. "Return to your room, mademoiselle. Speak of this to no one. Hercule Poirot will handle what comes next." Clara fled up the stairs, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Hastings watched her go, then turned to Poirot. "She's lying, isn't she? Or at least not telling the whole truth." "Oui, Hastings," Poirot said, retrieving the lockpick from the floor. "She tells part of the truth, but there is more. The note, it was placed for her to find, but by whom and why? The chest, it holds the key to this mystery, but it is not yet ready to yield its secrets." They examined the chest again, the tarnished key from the garden proving as useless as before, the lock refusing to budge. Poirot traced the scratches, noting their increasing depth. Someone is desperate, he murmured. But they are clever. 2. They use Clara to do their bidding, keeping their own hands clean. As they ascended the stairs, the library was silent once more, the bookcase closing with a soft thud. Poirot paused, his torch sweeping the room. We must be vigilant. Hastings, he said. The person behind this, they watch us, even now. Tomorrow, we shall deepen our inquiries. The family, the guests, they all have secrets, and I shall uncover them. Back in their rooms, Hastings was restless, his mind racing. What's in that chest? Poirot. Jewels, papers. Something worth killing for. Poirot's smile was faint. That, my friend, is what we must discover. But I suspect it is not the contents alone that matter, but what they represent. Power, perhaps, or shame. In Monfort Hall, the past is never truly buried. As the clock struck 1, Poirot extinguished his candle, but sleep eluded him. The midnight vigil had revealed Clara's role, but the true orchestrator of the mystery remained in the shadows. The secret room was a magnet, drawing the guilty and the curious alike, and Poirot knew that the next move in this deadly game was imminent. With his little grey cells at the ready, he settled into the darkness, waiting for the dawn to bring new revelations to Monfort Hall. Chapter 6. A shocking discovery. The dawn broke over Monfort Hall with a deceptive serenity. The pale light of an autumn morning softening the manor's stern facade. Hercule Poirot, ever an early riser, stood at his window, his sharp eyes tracing the mist that clung to the lawns like a ghostly shroud. The events of the midnight vigil, Clara Henshaw's desperate attempt to open the chest, her half-truths, and the elusive note had sharpened his focus. The secret room was no longer a mere curiosity. It was the epicenter of a mystery that pulsed with danger. Captain Hastings, roused by Poirot's gentle prodding, yawned as he joined his friend, his usual cheer tempered by the unease of the previous night. Poirot, Hastings said, adjusting his tie. That business with Clara last night, tits got me rattled. She's mixed up in something, but what? And who's pulling the strings? Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile, though his eyes remained grave. Mon ami, the strings, they are many, and they are tangled. Mademoiselle Henshaw, she is a pawn, but the hand that moves her is clever. Today, we must deepen our inquiry. The chest, it holds the key, but the truth lies in the hearts of those who dwell in this house. Their conversation was interrupted by a piercing scream that shattered the morning's calm. It came from the upper floors, a raw, anguished sound. That sent Hastings bolting for the door. Poirot followed at a measured pace, his mind already racing through possibilities. The household was stirring, doors opening as guests and family emerged, their faces pale with alarm. Lady Evelyn, her dressing gown hastily tied, appeared at the top of the grand staircase, her eyes wide with fear. It's Florence, she cried, clutching the banister. Mrs. Tegshee's dead. The words hung in the air, and a murmur of shock rippled through the gathering crowd. Poirot, his expression unreadable, ascended the stairs, Hastings at his heels. They followed. Lady Evelyn to a guest bedroom on the second floor, where a grim scene awaited. Mrs. Florence Teague, the widowed cousin, lay sprawled across her bed, her pinched features contorted in a rictus of agony. Her eyes were wide and glassy, her hands clutched at the bedclothes, and a faint, acrid odour lingered in the air. Dr. Lionel Vance, already present, knelt beside the body, his physician's bag open at his side. His face was pale, his movements precise but mechanical as he examined the corpse. "It's a heart attack," he said, his voice flat. "She must have been taken ill in the night. There's nothing to be done." Poirot's eyes narrowed, his gaze sweeping the room. The curtains were drawn, the fire in the grate reduced to embers. A glass of water stood on the bedside table, its contents untouched, and a small silver locket lay on the floor, as if dropped in a struggle. He knelt beside Mrs. Teague, his gloved fingers gently turning her head. The faint almond-like scent on her lips was unmistakable, a hallmark he had encountered before. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured, his voice low. "This is no heart attack, Dr. Vance. This is murder." A gasp escaped Lady Evelyn, and Hastings's jaw dropped. "Murder," he echoed. "But how, Poirot?" "She looks well dreadful, but a heart attack seems plausible." Poirot rose, his expression grave. "The little grey cells, they protest. Hastings. The odour of almonds, it is the signature of cyanide. And see here," he pointed to Mrs. Teague's hand, where her fingers clutched a small, ornate key, its design matching the Monfort crest. "This key, it is identical to the one we found in the garden, yet it is not the same. 2 keys, both for the chest in the secret room. This is no coincidence." Dr. Vance's face tightened, but he said nothing, busying himself with closing his bag. Poirot's gaze lingered on him, noting the slight tremor in his hands. "Dr. Vance," Poirot said, his tone deceptively mild, "you are certain this is a heart attack? You detected no unusual symptoms?" Vance met his gaze, his eyes cold. "I'm a physician, Monsieur Poirot. Her symptoms are consistent with cardiac failure. The strain of the weekend, perhaps, or her age. It's not uncommon." Poirot nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. He turned to Lady Evelyn, who stood trembling in the doorway. "Madame, when did you last see Mrs. Teague?" "Last night, after dinner," she replied, her voice unsteady. "She retired early, complaining of a headache. I thought nothing of it. She often fussed about her health." "And who else was in this wing of the house last night?" Poirot asked, his eyes sweeping the gathered faces. "Charles, pale and dishevelled. Beatrice, her lips pressed into a thin line. Clara, her glamour dimmed by shock. And Major Whitby, his military bearing intact, but his eyes uneasy." "No one, as far as I know," Lady Evelyn said. "The guests' rooms are in this corridor." But it was quiet after 11. Poirot's gaze fell on Clara, who stood at the edge of the group, her shawl drawn tightly around her. "Mademoiselle Henshaw," he said, "you were abroad in the house last night, were you not? Perhaps you saw something unusual." Clara's eyes widened, but she shook her head. "I was in my room after dinner, Monsieur Poirot. I didn't see anything." Her denial was too quick, and Poirot filed it away. He turned to the room, his mind cataloguing every detail: the untouched water, the locket, the key, the faint scent of cyanide. "Hastings," he said softly, "fetch Sir Reginald. He must be informed, and the police must be called." As Hastings hurried off, Poirot continued his examination. He lifted the locket from the floor, its silver surface cool against his glove. It opened to reveal a faded photograph of a young woman, not Mrs. Teague, but someone with a striking resemblance. To Lady Evelyn, a sister, perhaps, or a cousin. The mystery deepened. Sir Reginald arrived, his face thunderous. "What's this nonsense about murder, Poirot? Florence was an old busybody, but no one would want her dead." "Someone did," Monsieur Poirot replied, his voice calm but unyielding. "And they used cyanide, a poison that requires knowledge and opportunity. This key, found in her hand, suggests a connection to the secret room. We must return there, at once. Leaving Dr. Vance to arrange for the body to be moved, Poirot led Hastings and Lady Evelyn back to the library. The bookcase swung open with its familiar click, and the trio descended into the secret room. The chest stood as they had left it, its lock scratched but unyielding. Poirot tried the key from Mrs. Teague's hand, but it, like the first, refused. "To turn," says the curio. Poirot murmured. "Two keys, both marked with the Monfort crest, yet neither opens the chest. Either the lock is damaged, or these keys serve another purpose." Lady Evelyn's face was ashen. "Monsieur Poirot, what does this mean? Florence, murdered, and the room, how is it connected?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Madame, the secret room is the heart of this tragedy. Mrs. Teague, she knew something, or she sought something. The key in her hand, it was either her salvation or her doom." Hastings, peering at the chest, frowned. "Cyanide, though where would it come from? Not exactly something you keep in the pantry." "Indeed," Poirot said, "it requires access, perhaps to a laboratory or a pharmacy. Dr. Vance, he is a physician, Nan. He would know such things." Lady Evelyn gasped. "Lionel, surely you don't suspect my brother?" "I suspect everyone," Madame Poirot replied, his tone gentle but firm. "Until the truth is revealed, no one is above scrutiny." They returned to the house, where the atmosphere had shifted from unease to outright dread. The guests gathered in the drawing room, their faces a mix of shock and suspicion. Charles paced, his charm replaced by agitation. Beatrice sat rigidly, her eyes fixed on her mother. Clara, pale and withdrawn, avoided Poirot's gaze. Major Whitby muttered about the disgrace of it all, while Sir Reginald barked orders to the servants, demanding privacy. Poirot drew Hastings aside, his voice low. "This murder, Hastings, it changes everything. Mrs. Teague was a gossip, yes, but she was also a threat. The key, the cyanide, they point to a scheme far darker than we imagined. We must watch closely, for the killer is among us, and they will strike again if we do not act swiftly." As the police were summoned from the nearby village, mind was a whirlwind of connections. The secret room, the chest, the keys, the note, and now a murder each, was a piece of a puzzle, but the picture was still obscured. The shocking discovery of Mrs. Teague's death had torn the veil of civility from Monfort Hall, and Poirot knew that the truth, when it emerged, would be as cold and lethal as the poison that had claimed her life. Chapter 7. The chest, unlocked the morning following Mrs. Teague's shocking death, cast Monfort Hall in a pall of unease. The once vibrant manor now cloaked in a silence that seemed to seep into its very stones. Hercule Poirot, standing by the library window, watched the drizzle weave a grey veil over the Dorset hills, his mind a crucible of deductions. The discovery of cyanide poisoning, the key clutched in Mrs. Teague's lifeless hand, and the persistent mystery of the secret room's chest had transformed the weekend gathering into a grim tableau of suspicion. Captain Hastings, nursing a cup of tea, sat nearby, his usual ebullience subdued by the weight of murder. "Poirot," Hastings said, his voice low, "this business with Mrs. Teague, it's ghastly. Cyanide, of all things. And that key, do you think it really fits the chest?" Poirot's eyes, sharp as polished jade, flickered with intensity. "Mon ami, the key, it is a symbol, but whether it unlocks the chest or another secret, we shall soon discover. The death of Mrs. Teague, it is no accident. She was a threat, and someone ensured her silence. Today, we shall open the chest and see what secrets it guards. The police had arrived late the previous night, a local inspector named Grayson, whose methodical approach impressed Poirot, though he lacked the detective's flair for the psychological. Grayson had sealed Mrs. Teague's room and taken statements, but Poirot had persuaded him to allow a discreet examination of the secret room, arguing its relevance to the murder. With Lady Evelyn's permission, Poirot and Hastings now prepared to descend once more into the hidden chamber, the key from Mrs. Teague's hand burning in Poirot's pocket. Lady Evelyn met them in the library, her face drawn, her elegance marred by sleeplessness. "Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice trembling, "I cannot believe Florence was murdered. Who would do such a thing, and why?" Madame Poirot replied, his tone soothing yet resolute, "The why, it is tied to the secret room. The key your cousin held, it is a clue to her killer's motive. Let us go below and uncover what lies within." The bookcase swung open, with its familiar click, and the trio descended the narrow staircase, the air growing colder with each step. The secret room was unchanged, its stone walls damp and unyielding, the scarred table and peeling chair silent witnesses to the unfolding drama. The oak chest stood in the corner, its brass lock scarred from repeated attempts to breach it. Poirot produced the key, its Monfort crest glinting in the torchlight, and knelt beside the chest. "Moment de verite," he murmured, inserting the key. Unlike the tarnished key found in the garden, this one turned with a soft, satisfying click. The lid creaked as Poirot lifted it, revealing a trove of secrets within. The chest contained a bundle of yellowed letters tied with a faded ribbon, a stack of photographs, a small leather-bound notebook, and, nestled in a velvet pouch, a glass vial half filled with a clear liquid. Poirot's gloved fingers lifted the vial, his nose detecting the faint almond-like scent he had come to dread. "Cyanide," he said softly, holding the vial to the light. "The instrument of Mrs. Teague's death, hidden here all along." Hastings' eyes widened. "Good Lord, Poirot. So the killer used this to poison her. But who had access?" Lady Evelyn's hand flew to her throat. "That vial, it's been in this house. How could anyone? Someone did." Madame Poirot interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "Someone with knowledge of this room and its contents. Let us examine the rest." The letters were the first to draw his attention. Written in a precise, unfamiliar hand, they were addressed to Sir Reginald, their tone formal yet menacing. Poirot scanned one, his brow furrowing. "Mon Dieu, these are blackmail letters. They threaten to expose a scandalous liaison from Sir Reginald's youth before his marriage to you, madame. The writer demands payment to keep silent." Lady Evelyn's face paled. "Reginald, a scandal. I knew he had indiscretions in his past, but this..." Poirot turned to the photographs, which confirmed the letter's claims. One showed a younger Sir Reginald, his arm around a woman with dark hair and a secretive smile, standing outside a London theatre. Another depicted the same woman, older now, her face strikingly similar to the locket found in Mrs. Teague's room. "This woman," Poirot said, "she is the key to the blackmail. Do you know her, madame?" Lady Evelyn shook her head, her eyes wide. "I've never seen her. But the locket, Florence always wore it. She said it was a family heirloom." Poirot's mind raced. The notebook was next, its pages filled with cryptic entry states, sums of money, and initials that suggested a ledger of payments. One entry caught his eye. "FT £500 delivered." Mrs. Teague, it seemed, had been more than a gossip. She had been a player in the blackmail scheme. C'est incroyable, Poirot said, closing the notebook. Mrs. Teague, she was no innocent victim. She was part of this plot, extorting Sir Reginald, perhaps others. But someone turned the tables, using the cyanide she herself procured. Hastings frowned. So she was blackmailing Sir Reginald, and someone killed her to stop it. But who, and why keep the poison here? The chest, it is a vault of secrets. Poirot replied. Someone used it to hide their tools, but also to lure others, like Mademoiselle Henshaw, into their web. The note, the keys they are bait, meant to draw the curious and the guilty. They returned to the library, the chest's contents carefully wrapped in Poirot's handkerchief. Lady Evelyn, shaken, excused herself to compose a statement for Inspector Grayson, who was due to return. Poirot and Hastings retreated to the morning room, where Poirot spread the letters and photographs on a table, his eyes darting over each detail. "We must speak to Sir Reginald," Poirot said. "He must know of this scandal, and whether he paid to keep it silent." They found Sir Reginald in his study, his face red with indignation as he barked orders into a telephone. He slammed the receiver down as Poirot entered, his eyes narrowing. "What now, Poirot? More of your nonsense about that room." "Nan, Monsieur Poirot," said, laying the photographs before him. "This is about your past. These letters, they demand payment to conceal an affair. Mrs. Teague, it seems, was your blackmailer. Did you know?" Sir Reginald's face darkened, his hands clenching into fists. "Damn that woman. Yes, I had an affair, years ago, before Evelyn. A singer, nobody of consequence. Florence found out somehow old letters, I think, and started demanding money. I paid her to shut her up, but I didn't kill her." Poirot's gaze was unyielding. "And the chest, monsieur, did you know it held these secrets?" "Not a clue," Sir Reginald growled. "I thought that room was empty. Florence must have used it to stash her filthy evidence." Poirot nodded, though his mind was skeptical. Sir Reginald's anger was genuine, but his ignorance seemed convenient. Next, they sought Charles, who was in the billiard room, his usual charm replaced by agitation. "Father's affair. News to me," he said, his voice tight. "As for Florence, she was always nosing about, but I didn't know she was blackmailing him. Beatrice, found in the conservatory, was more forthcoming. I suspected father had secrets," she said, her eyes flashing. "Mother never speaks of it, but Florence dropped hints, cruel ones. If she was blackmailing him, good riddance, but I didn't know about the chest." Dr. Vance, pruning herbs in the garden, was evasive. "Blackmail, I wouldn't put it past Florence, but I know nothing of it. As for the chest, I told you, I haven't been in that room in years." Clara, pale and withdrawn, claimed ignorance. "I only wanted what Charles hinted at, something valuable. I didn't know about any blackmail or poison." Major Whitby, polishing his boots, offered little. Florence was a meddler, always stirring trouble. If she was blackmailing Reginald, she had it coming. As evening approached, Poirot retreated to his room, the chest's contents spread before him. The letters, the photographs, the cyanide, they painted a picture of greed and betrayal. But the killer's identity remained elusive. "Hastings," he said, "Mrs. Teague's death, it was no act of passion. It was calculated to silence her and protect another secret. The chest is unlocked, but the true mystery lies in who placed the poison there and why." The house seemed to close around them, its shadows deeper, its silence heavier. The chest had yielded its secrets, but each answer spawned new questions. Poirot knew the killer was watching, waiting for his next move, and he resolved to set a trap that would bring the truth into the light of Monfort Hall. Chapter 8. The coded letters, the drizzle that had cloaked Monfort Hall the previous day, had given way to a heavy fog, wrapping the manor in a shroud that seemed to mirror the thickening mystery within its walls. Hercule Poirot sat in the morning room, a small, elegant space overlooking the mist-laden gardens, his sharp eyes fixed on the bundle of letters retrieved from the secret room's chest. The photographs, the vial of cyanide, and the cryptic notebook lay neatly arranged on the table before him, each item a piece of a puzzle that grew more intricate with every revelation. Captain Hastings, restless as ever, stood by the window, his gaze shifting between the fog and Poirot's meticulous work. Poirot, Hastings said, breaking the silence, "Those letters, blackmail, cyanide, a dead woman. It's all connected, isn't it? But who's behind it? Sir Reginald's got motive, but he's not the sneaky type. Clara's up to her neck, but she's no mastermind. Who else?" Poirot's fingers, gloved in their habitual precision, paused over a letter, his lips curving into a faint smile. "Mon ami, you ask the right questions, but you seek the answers too quickly. The letters, they are not merely blackmail. They are a code, a language of secrets. To understand the killer, we must first understand their words. The letters, written in a precise hand, were laced with veiled threats, demanding payment to conceal Sir Reginald's youthful indiscretion with the mysterious singer. But Poirot's keen mind had detected something more, a pattern in the phrasing, a deliberate choice of words that suggested a hidden message. The notebook, with its cryptic entries of dates, sums, and initials, hinted at a broader scheme, one that extended beyond Mrs. Teague's blackmail of Sir Reginald. The entry FT £500 delivered had confirmed her role, but other initials LV, CH, B, M suggested additional players. Poirot spread the letters across the table, his torch illuminating the faded ink. "Regard as Hastings," he said, pointing to a recurring sequence of numbers tucked into the margins. "These trays, -7, -12, the 9th of April 15th, are not random. They are a cipher, a code within the blackmail. The writer, they are clever, hiding their true intent." Hastings peered over his shoulder, his brow furrowed. "A code? What's it mean, Poirot? More blackmail demands." "Perhaps," Poirot said, "but I suspect more. These numbers, they correspond to words, perhaps pages or lines in a book. A common method used by those who wish to conceal their plans from prying eyes. We must find the key to this cipher." He turned to the notebook, its pages a ledger of transactions, but also a map of relationships. The initials LV appeared frequently, alongside sums that suggested payments or debts. Dr. Lionel Vance, Lady Evelyn's brother, was a physician with access to cyanide, and his evasive demeanor had not escaped Poirot's notice. CH could be Clara Henshaw, caught twice in the secret room, her claims of innocence ringing hollow. BM, less certain, might point to Beatrice Montfort, whose sharp tongue and restless energy masked a deeper discontent. Poirot spent the morning deciphering the letters, cross-referencing the numbers with the notebook's entries. Using a volume of Shakespeare's plays found in the library, likely choice for a family of Montfort's stature, he tested the cipher, matching numbers to act, scene, and line. Slowly, a message emerged. Proof in the vault. Silence, or ruin. The vault, Poirot surmised, was the chest, and the proof was the evidence of Sir Reginald's affair. But the message hinted at a larger conspiracy, one that Mrs. Teague had stumbled into, perhaps to her doom. As luncheon approached, Poirot sought out Dr. Vance, whom he found in the conservatory, examining a tray of herbal tinctures. The physician's pale face was composed, but his hands betrayed a slight tremor as he measured a drop of liquid. Dr. Vance, Poirot said, his tone deceptively light. "You are a man of science, n'est-ce pas? Tell me, have you ever used cyanide in your work?" Vance's eyes flicked up, his expression guarded. "Cyanide. It's a dangerous substance, Monsieur Poirot, used in some medical research, but not in my practice. Why do you ask?" Poirot's smile was bland. "A passing curiosity. Mrs. Teague's death, it was caused by cyanide, a poison not easily obtained. You, with your knowledge, would know where to find such a thing." Vance's face tightened. "If you're implying I had anything to do with Florence's death, you're mistaken. I pronounced her dead, nothing more." "And the secret room?" Poirot pressed. "You said you used it for journals, yet we found no such papers. Perhaps you visited it for other purposes." Vance's fingers crushed a sprig of mint, the scent sharp in the air. "I told you, I haven't been there in years. You're chasing shadows, Poirot." Poirot nodded, letting the matter drop, but his mind was alert. Vance's defensiveness was a thread to tug, and the initials LV in the notebook were too coincidental to ignore. He next sought Clara, who was in the drawing room, her glamour dimmed by nervous energy. "Mademoiselle," he said, "the chest, it has yielded its secrets, letters, photographs, poison. You sought something valuable, you said. Did you know of the blackmail?" Clara's eyes widened, but she shook her head. "Blackmail? I swear, I only wanted what Charles hinted at, something worth a fortune. I didn't know about any letters or poison." Her fear was genuine, but Poirot sensed she was still withholding something. He thanked her and moved on, his inquiries taking him to Beatrice, who was in the garden, her sketchbook abandoned. "Mademoiselle," he said, "your family, it has secrets. The chest held letters that threaten your father. Did you know of this?" Beatrice's eyes flashed. "Father's past. I suspected he wasn't a saint, but blackmail. That's Florence's style, not mine. If she was involved, she got what she deserved." Her venom was striking, and Poirot noted it. Sir Reginald, confronted in his study, was apoplectic. "Those letters, damn Florence. She bled me dry, but I didn't touch her. Someone else settled the score." Major Whitby, polishing a hunting rifle in the smoking room, provided an unexpected clue. "Saw Vance skulking near the library 2 nights ago," he said, his voice low. "Thought it odd, but didn't want to stir trouble. He looked like a man with something to hide." Poirot's mind seized on this. Vance, with his access to cyanide and his presence near the secret room, was a growing shadow in the mystery. The coded letters pointed to a network of secrets, and Mrs. Teague's death was the price of her involvement. As evening approached, Poirot gathered his findings, the letters, a notebook, a roadmap to the killer's mind. "Hastings," he said, as they retired to the morning room, "the letters, they are a confession, but also a trap. Someone used Mrs. Teague to extort Sir Reginald, but they silenced her when she became a liability. The initials, the cyanide, the secret room, they all point to one who knows too much." Hastings frowned. "Vance, you think? He's got the means, and that business about the library?" "Perhaps," Poirot said, "but we must be certain. The killer, they are close, watching us. Tomorrow, we shall set a trap, using the letters as bait. The truth, it is near, and Hercule Poirot will not let it slip away. The fog thickened outside, mirroring the complexity of the mystery. The coded letters had revealed a web of blackmail and betrayal, but the killer's identity remained a shadow, lurking just beyond Poirot's grasp. Monfort Hall, with its secrets and silences, was a stage set for a final act, and Poirot was determined to bring the curtain down. Chapter 9. The trap is set. The fog that had enveloped Monfort Hall lingered into the late afternoon, its tendrils curling around the manor like the fingers of a spectral hand. Hercule Poirot stood in the library, his small, meticulous figure dwarfed by the towering shelves, his sharp eyes fixed on the bookcase that concealed the secret room. The coded letters, the photographs, the vial of cyanide, and the notebook from the chest lay carefully arranged on a nearby table. Each item a thread in the intricate web of deceit that had claimed Mrs. Teague's life. Captain Hastings, pacing restlessly, broke the silence with a frustrated sigh. "Poirot," Hastings said, gesturing at the evidence. "We've got the letters, the poison, and a dead woman. Vance is looking shadier by the minute, and Clara's not exactly pure as snow. Why not haul them in and get to the bottom of this?" Poirot's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile, his fingers adjusting the alignment of the letters with precision. "Mon ami, to haul, as you say, is to scatter the pieces of the puzzle. The killer, they are cunning, hiding behind others. Clara, Mrs. Teague, perhaps even Sir Reginald. No, we must draw them out, tempt them to reveal themselves. Tonight we shall set a trap, and the truth, it will come to us." The plan, devised with Poirot's characteristic blend of ingenuity and theatrics, was to announce at dinner that he had fully decoded the letters and uncovered the blackmailer's identity. The news, carefully calculated to provoke a reaction, would be delivered with just enough ambiguity to unsettle the guilty. Poirot suspected that the killer, desperate to protect their secret, would return to the secret room to retrieve or destroy the evidence. He and Hastings would lie in wait, ready to catch the culprit in the act. As the household prepared for dinner, Poirot reviewed his findings. The coded letters, deciphered using Shakespeare's plays, had revealed a chilling message, proof. In the vault, silence or ruin. The notebook's entries, with initials like LV and CH, pointed to a network of complicity, with Mrs. Teague as a key player until her murder. Dr. Lionel, Vance's access to cyanide and his reported presence near the library made him a prime suspect. Yet Clara's repeated ventures into the secret room suggested she was more than a mere pawn. Beatrice's bitterness and Charles's debts added further layers, while Sir Reginald's past affair provided the motive for the blackmail. The killer, Poirot believed, was someone who had orchestrated the scheme, used Mrs. Teague, and then silenced her when she became a liability. Dinner was a tense affair. The grand dining room bathed in the soft glow of candelabras, their light reflecting off the polished silver and crystal. Lady Evelyn presided with strained grace, her eyes darting to Poirot as if seeking reassurance. Sir Reginald, at the head of the table, was subdued, his earlier bluster replaced by a brooding silence. Charles, his charm fraying, drank more wine than was wise, his glances at Clara sharp with suspicion. Beatrice sat rigidly, her fork moving mechanically, while Clara's laughter rang hollow, her glamour dimmed by nervous energy. Dr. Vance was a study in detachment, his pale face betraying nothing, though his fingers trembled slightly as he lifted his glass. Major Whitby, ever the soldier, maintained a bluff cheer, but his eyes missed little. Poirot waited until the dessert courser, delicate lemon soufflé, for making his move. He rose, his small stature commanding the room's attention, with an authority that belied his size. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his voice clear and measured, "I must share a development in the tragedy that has befallen Monfort Hall. The letters found in the secret room, they have been decoded. They reveal not only the blackmail of Sir Reginald, but the identity of the one who orchestrated it. Tonight, I shall present this evidence to Inspector Grayson, and the truth will be known." A murmur rippled through the table, and Poirot's keen eyes noted every reaction. Lady Evelyn's hand tightened on her napkin, her face pale. Sir Reginald's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. Charles spilled his wine, cursing under his breath, while Beatrice's gaze flicked to her brother, sharp with accusation. Clara's smile froze, her fingers twisting a ring on her hand. Dr. Vance's expression remained impassive, but his knuckles whitened around his glass. Major Whitby raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "Mon Dieu," Poirot continued, his tone grave. "This is a house of secrets, but they shall remain hidden no longer. The secret room, it holds the key to Mrs. Teague's murder, and I, Hercule Poirot, will see justice done." The announcement had the desired effect. The air grew thick with tension, the guests' polite facades cracking under the weight of suspicion. As coffee was served in the drawing room, Poirot slipped away, signaling Hastings to follow. They retreated to the library, where Poirot had prepared a hiding place, a narrow alcove behind a heavy tapestry, offering a clear view of the bookcase. The evidence remained on the table, a deliberate lure to tempt the guilty. Hastings whispered, crouching awkwardly in the alcove. "This is all very well, but what if no one takes the bait? We could be here all night." "Patience," Hastings Poirot replied, his voice a mere breath. "The guilty, they cannot resist. The letters, the cyanide, they are a threat to their safety. They will come." The minutes ticked by, the grandfather clock in the corner marking time with a relentless tick. The house settled into a restless quiet, the guests retiring to their rooms, their footsteps fading. At 11:30, a soft creak broke the silence, the library door opening. Poirot's hand tightened on his torch, and Hastings held his breath. A figure moved in the moonlight, their silhouette indistinct but purposeful. They paused at the bookcase, their fingers finding the hidden catch. The panel swung open, and the figure descended, a lantern's glow flickering below. Poirot and Hastings crept to the stairs, their movements silent. At the bottom, they saw Dr. Vance, his lean frame hunched over the chest, his hands rifling through the letters. His face, illuminated by the lantern, was taut with urgency, his fingers trembling as he scanned the pages. "Monsieur le Docteur," Poirot said, stepping into the light, his voice cutting through the stillness. "You return to the scene of your crime, I see." Vance spun around, the letters slipping from his grasp. His eyes were wide, his composure shattered. "Poirot, this isn't, it's not what you think." "Then explain, monsieur," Poirot said, his tone unyielding. "The cyanide, the letters, the initials LV, in the notebook they point to you, Mrs. Teague. She was your partner in blackmail, was she not? And when she became a danger, you silenced her." Vance's face crumpled, and he sank onto the chair, his hands covering his face. "It's true," he whispered. "Florence and I, we found the letters years ago, in the chest. They were about Reginald's affair, proof that could ruin him. We demanded money, small sums at first, but she got greedy. She wanted more, threatened to expose everything. I gave her the cyanide, told her it was for a plan to fake her death, to scare Reginald into paying more. But I made sure it was lethal. Poirot's eyes gleamed. And the note, midnight, the chest. You placed it for Clara too. Find, to draw suspicion away from yourself. Vance nodded, his voice hoarse. I thought if she was caught, it would muddy the waters. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Hastings, standing at the stairs, clenched his fists. You cold-blooded devil. You killed her and let Clara take the blame. Poirot raised a hand, silencing him. Dr. Vance, you have confessed, and the police will hear of it. But tell me, what was the proof in the vault? What secret is worth such a price? Vance's eyes were hollow. The letters, they weren't just about Reginald's affair. There's more documents that could ruin the Monfort name, secrets from generations past. Florence knew too much, and I couldn't let her destroy us all. Poirot nodded, his mind already piecing together the final threads. Come, monsieur, you will face justice, and Monfort Hall will be free of its shadows. As they escorted Vance upstairs, the fog outside seemed to lift, a faint star piercing the night. The trap had sprung, and the killer was caught. But Poirot knew the full truth. The secrets hidden in those coded letters would require one final revelation to lay the mystery of Monfort Hall to rest. Chapter 10. The motive revealed. The fog that had cloaked Monfort Hall had dissipated by the evening, leaving the manor bathed in the cold, clear light of a crescent moon. The grand drawing room, with its gilded mirrors and velvet drapes, was the Stage 4, Hercule Poirot's denouement, a gathering of the household summoned to hear the truth behind Mrs. Teague's murder. The air was heavy with anticipation. The guests and family seated in a semicircle around the fireplace, their faces a mix of dread and curiosity. Captain Hastings stood by the door, his arms crossed, his eyes darting between the assembled company, and Poirot, who stood at the centre, his small, immaculate figure commanding the room with an authority that belied his stature. Dr. Lionel Vance, pale and subdued, sat under the watchful eye of Inspector Grayson, who had arrived with a constable to take him into custody. The coded letters, photographs, notebook, and vial of cyanide lay on a polished table, a grim tableau of evidence. Lady Evelyn, her hands clasped tightly, sat beside Sir Reginald, whose florid face was set in a scowl. Charles Monfort, his usual charm replaced by a nervous fidgeting, avoided his sister Beatrice's sharp gaze. Clara Henshaw, her glamour dimmed by fear, twisted a handkerchief in her lap, while Major Whitby maintained a stoic silence, his military bearing unshaken. Ladies and gentlemen, Poirot began, his voice clear and resonant, we have gathered to unravel the tragedy that has darkened Monfort Hall. The death of Mrs. Florence Teague. It was no accident, but a murder most foul, executed with cyanide and cunning. The secret room, with its locked chest, has revealed its secrets, and now I, Hercule Poirot, shall reveal the motive that drove a killer to such a desperate act. He paused, his green eyes sweeping the room, noting every flicker of emotion. The chest contained letters, photographs, a notebook, and a vial of cyanide, evidence of a blackmail scheme that threatened the honor of this house. The letters, coded with a cipher drawn from Shakespeare's plays, spoke of a scandal from Sir Reginald's past, an affair that Mrs. Teague exploited for profit. But there was more, a deeper secret, hidden in the words proof in the vault. Silence or ruin. Sir Reginald shifted, his voice gruff. Get on with it, Poirot. We know Florence was a blackmailer. Who killed her? Poirot raised a hand, his expression calm but unyielding. Patience, monsieur. The truth, it is a delicate thing, to be unveiled with care. Mrs. Teague was not alone in her scheme. She had a partner, one who provided the cyanide and orchestrated the blackmail. The partner, he sits among US Dr. Lionel Vance. A murmur rippled through the room, and Lady Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Lionel, no, it cannot be. Oui, madame, Poirot said, his gaze fixed on Vance, who sat with his head bowed, his hands clasped tightly. Dr. Vance, you confessed last night in the secret room, but let us clarify the motive. You and Mrs. Teague discovered the letters years ago, hidden in the chest. They revealed Sir Reginald's affair, a scandal that could tarnish the Monfort name. You demanded payment, small sums at first, but Mrs. Teague grew greedy. She threatened to expose not only the affair, but a greater secret one that could destroy this family. Vance's voice was a hoarse whisper. It wasn't supposed to end like this. Florence, she wouldn't stop. She wanted more, always more. Poirot nodded, his eyes never leaving Vance. And so, you turned the tables. You supplied the cyanide, telling her it was for a plan to fake her death, to frighten Sir Reginald into paying more. But you ensured the dose was lethal, silencing her forever. The note midnight, the chest, you placed it for Mademoiselle Henshaw to find, to draw suspicion away from yourself. You used her curiosity, her greed, to mask your own. Clara's face flushed, her voice trembling. I didn't know. I thought it was Charles's note, a chance at something valuable. I wasn't part of any murder. Nan, Mademoiselle, Poirot said, his tone gentle but firm. You were a pawn, manipulated by Dr. Vance. But the true motive, it lies deeper. The notebook, it lists initials, VCH, B, and sums of money. These were not mere payments, but debts, tied to a secret that Mrs. Teague uncovered. Dr. Vance, tell us, what was the proof in the vault? Vance's shoulders sagged, his voice barely audible. It wasn't just Reginald's affair. The letters, they mentioned a child, born out of wedlock, hidden by the Monforts to protect their name. Florence found documents proving it a birth certificate, a letter from the mother. She threatened to reveal it, to ruin us all. I couldn't. Letter, Lady Evelyn's face was ashen. A child. Reginald, is this true? Sir Reginald's jaw tightened, his eyes blazing. It was years ago, Evelyn. A mistake, long buried. I paid to keep it quiet, but I didn't know Florence had proof. Poirot's gaze softened, but his voice was relentless. The child, it is the heart of the motive. Mrs. Teague, she saw an opportunity to extort not just money, but power. Dr. Vance, you acted to protect the family, but also yourself. The notebook shows your debts gambling, perhaps, and Mrs. Teague's demands were draining you. You killed her not only to silence her, but to save yourself. Vance's head snapped up, his eyes desperate. It was for Evelyn, for the family. Florence would have destroyed us. I had no choice. Poirot's expression was unyielding. There is always a choice, monsieur. You chose murder, and now you must face the consequences. Inspector Grayson stepped forward, his voice brisk. Dr. Vance, you'll come with me. We'll take your full statement at the station. As Vance was led away, the room erupted in hushed whispers. Beatrice's eyes were wet with tears, her voice sharp. How could you, Lionel? Our own brother, Charles. His face pale, muttered, good riddance to Florence. But this, it's too much. Clara, trembling, rose and fled to her room, her part in the drama exposed but unpunished. Major Whitby cleared his throat, his voice gruff. "Damned mess, Poirot. You've got a nose for this sort of thing." Poirot bowed slightly. "The little grey cells, Major, they see what others miss." The motive, it was greed, but also fear. Fear of a secret that could unravel a family's legacy. Lady Evelyn, her composure breaking, turned to Poirot. "Monsieur Poirot, you've saved us from further ruin, but at what cost?" "My brother, my family," Madame Poirot said softly. "The truth, it is painful, but it is also a cleansing. Fire, Monfort Hall will heal in time." As the guests dispersed, Poirot and Hastings remained, the evidence gathered for the police. "Well, Poirot," Hastings said, his voice subdued, "you've done it again. But that business about the child ghastly stuff, think it's really true?" "We, Hastings," Poirot replied, his eyes distant. "The letters, the photographs, do not lie. The Monforts have buried their past, but it has a way of rising. The motive is revealed, but the scars, they will linger." The drawing room fell silent, the fire crackling softly as the moon cast its cold light over Monfort Hall. The killer was unmasked. The motive laid bare. But Poirot knew that the echoes of this tragedy would resonate long after he left the manor's shadowed halls. Chapter 11. The aftermath. The morning sun broke through the lingering mist, casting a pale, forgiving light over Monfort Hall. The manor, so recently a stage for deception and murder, seemed to exhale, its stone walls absorbing the weight of the truths laid bare. Hercule Poirot stood in the morning room, his small, precise figure framed against the window, his sharp eyes tracing the gentle slopes of the Dorset hills. The revelation of Dr. Lionel Vance's guilt, the unmasking of Mrs. Teague's blackmail, and the dark secret of a hidden child had left the household reeling. Yet there was a sense of release, as if the manor's shadows had been swept clean. Captain Hastings, seated at a small table with a cup of cooling tea, was uncharacteristically quiet, his usual buoyancy tempered by the gravity of the previous night's confrontation. "Poirot," Hastings said, breaking the silence, "you've done it again, solved the puzzle, caught the killer. But I can't help feeling sorry for the Monforts, their own brother, turning on them like that. And that business about the child, it's torn them apart." Poirot turned from the window, his expression serene yet tinged with melancholy. "Mon ami, the truth, it is a double-edged sword. It brings justice, yes, but it also wounds. The Monforts, they will bear these scars, but they are strong. They will endure." The household was subdued, its rhythm disrupted by the departure of Dr. Vance, who had been taken to the local police station by Inspector Grayson. The coded letters, photographs, notebook, and vial of cyanide had been handed over as evidence, each item a testament to the greed and fear that had driven the tragedy. Lady Evelyn, pale but composed, had spent the morning in her private sitting room, grappling with the betrayal of her brother and the revelation of her husband's past. Sir Reginald, his bluster diminished, had retreated to his study, issuing curt instructions to the servants to prepare for the guests' departure. Poirot and Hastings joined the family in the drawing room, where the remaining guests had gathered for a final, somber tea. Clara Henshaw, her glamour restored but her eyes wary, sat apart, her role as a pawn in Vance's scheme leaving her chastened but uncharged. Charles Monfort, his charm subdued, sipped his tea in silence, his earlier recklessness replaced by a quiet introspection. Beatrice, her sharp features softened by grief, sat beside her mother, her hand resting on Lady Evelyn's arm. Major Whitby, ever the soldier, maintained a stoic presence, though his occasional glances at Poirot held a grudging respect. Lady Evelyn rose as Poirot entered, her voice steady despite the strain in her eyes. "Monsieur Poirot, I cannot thank you enough. You have saved us from further ruin, though the cost. My brother." Her voice faltered, and she pressed a handkerchief to her lips. "Madame," Poirot said, bowing slightly, "the task of Hercule Poirot is to seek the truth, no matter how painful. Dr. Vance, he chose a path of darkness, but you must now choose to rebuild. The secrets of Monfort Hall, they are no longer hidden." Sir Reginald, emerging from his study, joined them, his face lined with fatigue. "Poirot," he said gruffly, "you've done us a service, though it's a bitter one. That affair, the child I thought had buried. I'll make things right with Evelyn, with the family. No more secrets." Poirot nodded, his eyes keen. "That is wise, monsieur. A house built on truth, it stands stronger than one built on lies." Beatrice spoke, her voice low but firm. "Father, I'll help. The estate, the family will keep it together. No more selling the land, no more hiding." Her gaze flicked to Charles, who nodded, his expression resolute. Clara, rising from her seat, approached Poirot, her voice soft. "Monsieur Poirot, I was a fool, chasing after something I didn't understand. I'm sorry for my part in this." Smile was gentle. "Mademoiselle, you were led astray, but you did not kill. Learn from this, and choose your path with care." Major Whitby cleared his throat, his voice gruff. "Damned fine work, Poirot. You've a mind like a steel trap. If you ever need a soldier, you know where to find me." Poirot bowed, his eyes twinkling. "Major, your vigilance, it did not go unnoticed. The clue about Dr. Vance in the library, it was most helpful." As tea concluded, the guests began to disperse, their bags packed for departure. Clara was to return to London, her theatrical ambitions tempered by the weekend's events. Major Whitby planned a visit to a nearby regiment, his tales of Monfort Hall already taking shape. The Monforts, though shaken, were united in their resolve to move forward. The spectre of the secret room no longer a threat. Poirot and Hastings lingered in the drawing room, the fire crackling softly as the manor settled into a fragile peace. "Hastings," Poirot said, his voice reflective, "this case, it reminds us that secrets, they are like poison. They fester, they destroy. But the truth, it heals, even if it stings." Hastings nodded, his eyes distant. "Poor Vance. He thought he was protecting the family, but he lost everything. And that child, do you think they'll ever find them?" Poirot's gaze was distant, his fingers tracing the edge of his teacup. "Perhaps, Hastings. The Monforts, they have resources, and now the will to face their past. But that is a mystery for another day. For now, our work here is done." Lady Evelyn approached, her expression one of gratitude tinged with sorrow. "Monsieur Poirot, you have our eternal thanks. Monfort Hall will never forget you." "Madame," Poirot replied, "it is I who am honored to have served you. May your home find peace." As the afternoon waned, Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart, their bags packed for the train to London. The manor, though scarred, stood resilient, its secrets laid bare by the relentless logic of Poirot's little grey cells. The aftermath of the tragedy was a time for healing, for rebuilding, and for the Monforts to reclaim their legacy from the shadows of the past. Chapter 12. The return to London, the late afternoon sun cast a golden glow over the Dorset countryside as Hercule Poirot and Captain Hastings stood on the gravel drive of Monfort Hall, their valises packed and ready for the journey back to London. The manor, its honey-coloured stone softened by the fading light, stood as a silent witness to the drama that had unfolded within its walls. The air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and fallen leaves, and the distant hum of the Rolls-Royce signalled the approach of their transport to the station. The resolution of Mrs. Teague's murder, the unmasking of Dr. Lionel Vance, and the revelation of the Monfort family's buried secrets had left the household chastened but resolute. And Poirot's work was done, Hastings, adjusting his scarf against the autumn chill, glanced at the manor with a mix of relief and melancholy. "Well, Poirot," he said, his voice tinged with his characteristic optimism, "another case solved, eh? You've put the ghosts of Monfort Hall to rest, and no mistake. But I can't help feeling for the Monforts such a tangle of secrets." Poirot, immaculate in his tailored overcoat and Homburg hat, adjusted the angle of his cane with a precise flick. His green eyes, sharp as ever, lingered on the manor's ivy-clad facade, as if searching for one last clue in its shadowed windows. "Mon ami," he replied, his voice soft but resonant, "the ghosts, they are not so easily banished. The Monforts, they have faced their past, but the echoes of such secrets linger. Yet it is the way of Hercule Poirot to bring light to the darkness, and so we leave them to heal." The Rolls-Royce drew up, driven by the taciturn Jenkins, who tipped his cap with a deferential nod. As they climbed into the car, Poirot's mind replayed the case, the cryptic note, the tarnished keys, the coded letters, the vial of cyanide, and the chilling confession of Dr. Vance. Each piece had fallen into place through the relentless logic of his little grey cells, revealing a web of blackmail and betrayal that had culminated in murder. The Monforts, though wounded, had vowed to rebuild, and Poirot took quiet satisfaction in knowing he had spared them further ruin. The drive to the station was swift, the countryside unfolding in a blur of hedgerows and rolling hills. Hastings, ever the talkative companion, filled the silence with reflections. "That Vance chap," he said, shaking his head, "thought he was protecting the family, but he nearly destroyed them. And Clara, poor girl, caught up in it all. Do you think she'll learn her lesson?" Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. "Mademoiselle Henshaw, she is young, and the stage, it is her world. She sought fortune, but found only danger. I believe she will tread more carefully, but the heart, it is unpredictable." As for Dr. Vance, his motive was not only protection, but greed. His debts, they drove him to desperate measures. The human soul, Hastings, it is a labyrinth, and even the best intentions can lead to darkness. The train station, a quaint affair, with a single platform and a ticket office wreathed in ivy, was nearly deserted, save for a few villagers awaiting the evening express. Poirot and Hastings settled into a first-class carriage, the plush seats a welcome contrast to the tension of Monfort Hall. As the train chugged into motion, its whistle piercing the dusk, Poirot gazed out at the fading silhouette of the manor, his thoughts turning inward. "Hastings," he said, his voice reflective, "this case, it reminds us that secrets, they are like shadows, they grow long when the light is dim. The secret room, it was a vault for the Monfort's shame, but also a trap for those who sought to exploit it. Mrs. Teague, Dr. Vance, even Clara, they were all drawn to its darkness, and it consumed them." Hastings nodded, his eyes on the passing fields. "And that child, the one mentioned in the letters, do you think the Monforts will find them?" Seems a rotten thing to be hidden away like that. Poirot's expression grew pensive. Perhaps, my friend, Sir Reginald, he has the means, and now the will to face his past. Lady Evelyn, she is strong, and Beatrice, she has the fire to see it through. The truth, it has set them free, but freedom, it comes with its own burdens. The train gathered speed, the rhythmic clatter of the wheels, a soothing counterpoint to Poirot's musings. He adjusted his hat, his fingers tracing the brim with habitual precision. The little grey cells Hastings, they never rest. Even now, they ponder the next mystery, the next shadow to be illuminated. For in every house, in every heart, there is a secret room waiting to be unlocked. Hastings grinned, his mood lifting. And you'll be there to open it, Poirot, with that infernal brain of yours. I say, it's a wonder you don't tire of. It all naturellement, Poirot replied, his eyes twinkling. Too tire of the pursuit of truth, it would be too tire of life itself. And Hercule Poirot, he is far from such a fate. As the train neared London, the lights of the city began to twinkle in the distance. A beacon of civilization after the shadowed intrigues of Monfort Hall. Poirot leaned back, his mind already drifting to the next challenge, the next puzzle that awaited in the bustling streets of the capital. The return to London was not merely a journey home, but a return to the ceaseless dance of human nature, where secrets lurked and truths waited to be uncovered by the unerring logic of Hercule Poirot. The end.